Welcome, everyone, to Real Talk Office Hours, hunting for silver linings for this Monday, June 1st, 2020. Today, hosted by Corey Hart and George Katsanos, and we have a very special guest all the way from Pisa Lucca, Salvatore, and all the way from Italy. So he is a Startup Grind chapter director over there. Looking forward to getting connected and hearing about what's going on in his ecosystem. And we are brought to you by Startup Grind. It is the world's largest startup community with 600 plus chapters in over 125 countries. Startup Grind operates with a mission to educate, inspire, and connect, and we are driven by three values. Those are make friends, not contacts, help others before you help yourself, and give before you take. Now, this pandemic has been and will continue to be the great global leveler. As entrepreneurs, we do our very best for our businesses, our teams, our families, and we should be informed, we should be rational, and we should be analytical and rigorous in our thinking. We also need to learn to control our biases as they emerge in various circumstances. We invite you to join us live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we track the intersection of these biases, facts, and action through our review of global financial markets alongside the check-ins and real talk with Startup Grind chapter directors, entrepreneurs, and ecosystem stakeholders from across the world. Now, no one has a crystal ball, but if we keep our eyes and ears open and pay attention, we may be able to see around the bend and with some luck, spot the silver linings that are around every cloud. If you miss these live events, you can always view the recordings at startupgrind.com/grand-rapids, where you can also download the reading notes from the show. Now, before I introduce George for the global market update, a bit of housekeeping. Comments made and views expressed by all participants in this podcast are not intended to invite or incite individuals, entrepreneurs, or investors to buy or sell financial assets, real assets, commodities, futures, and/or options. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform, not to trade or to invest. If you feel compelled to trade and/or invest, please call your broker. Remember, however, risk is everywhere, even when you think that there is no risk and you're not taking one. With that, it is my very deep pleasure to introduce to you George Katsanos to get us started with the catch-up of what the global markets are thinking. And let me make sure I can allow you to share your screen there, George.
Thank you. Thank you, Corey.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to Real Talk. Salvatore, benvenuto a Real Talk. It is a pleasure to have you from Italy. I hope you are healthy, safe, and I hope Italy recovers soon. Let's start with our currencies as we start every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The reason we start with the financial markets in Real Talk is very simple. All of us as entrepreneurs are risk takers. All of us as investors are risk takers. There are different kinds of risks from all kinds of markets. However, the publicly quoted markets, those markets that trade every day, are always able to give us certain signals about potential improvements of underlying conditions, signals about potential downturns. And remember, the markets are not only the equities markets. We have commodities, we have precious metals, we have oil and gas, we have grains, we have rates and bonds, we have also futures, and we also have equities. As we saw about 10 days ago, the dollar is beginning to weaken a little bit against many of the major crosses, notably against the euro. From $1.06 against the euro in the middle of the crisis, we're now trading at around 1.11. This is a clear indication that everyone is hoping that the recovery in Europe will continue, particularly after the 750 billion euro package. As we noted last week, 250 billion of this is loans and 500 billion is essentially grants. Finally, the European Union, led by Germany, began to feel the pressure of the markets and responded in a unified manner. The dollar against the yen is stable at about 107.6, And the reason for that is we have continued capping of the yields by the Bank of Japan in Japan. And as we have seen recently, the Japanese Central Bank has started investing in ETFs as we speak. I'm sorry, continue to invest in the ETFs. They started a long time ago, but now they own about 80% of all ETFs traded in the Tokyo Stock Exchange. This is a big number, and bear this in mind. Even sterling is showing signs of recovery at trading at 124.65. The Aussie dollar slightly upbeat, and across the board we see a general sentiment that underlying conditions are slowly improving around the world. When we look at the fixed income market, the bonds, we always focus on the 10-year government bond yields because they're the most liquid, the most prevalent instrument at the moment. And it's also a good instrument to compare across currencies, across regions around the world. Starting with India, remember today we had the big news. The credit rating of India was downgraded by a simple one notch by Moody's from Baa2 to Baa3. This is just one notch above what we call non-investment grade on junk bonds. The market obviously expected it. This is in response to obviously expenses and the lower growth that the Indian government is expecting. However, look at the bonds. They're trading at 5.8%. That's the yield. Not much change to Friday's close. South Korea, 1.4%. Singapore, 0.8%. Across the board, and Japan, of course, 0%. We see that very little change since Friday's close has taken place in Asia. In Europe, on the other hand, we see continued bullishness in the bonds. We see that Italian bonds have recovered. They're maintaining the position below 1.5%. This is a 10-year bond. That is great news for Italy, for the budget, because that means the government will continue to borrow relatively cheaply, that whatever fears we could have had about Italy's collapse or getting out of the euro are beginning to subside again. The same thing with Greece and Spain. The rest of Europe is unchanged, with Switzerland leading the way with negative interest rates at 0.5% and Germany with 0.4%. Here in the North Americas, Mexico has a 6.1% yield, not changed very much recently. Canada 0.5%, and the US at 0.66. Again, remember, we closed on Friday at about 0.7% in the US. These small variations don't mean very much. The key signal that the market is giving us is very simple. As Jerome Powell, the chairman of the board of the Federal Reserve, mentioned on a number of occasions, the Federal Reserve will do its utmost to support this economy. And by supporting the US economy, the Federal Reserve is also providing the tools and the mechanisms and the resources to central banks around the world to do exactly the same. We saw yesterday, by the way, that one of the members of the board of the Federal Reserve, Loretta Messner, gave an interview, and she was absolutely clear. There's a second wave of monetary policy support that will probably be announced in the Federal Reserve meeting in June. Against this background, we now know why the stock market around the world is green. Look at this. This last 60 days, we've seen on a number of occasions where this screen was all red. You remember, Corey? It was really, really, really despondent. Today, however, from Asia to Europe to the US, the markets are positive. Only in areas where we didn't have trading today because of the bank holiday, we have no news, like Germany, for instance. But everywhere else in the world, the markets are responding positively. There's a number of reasons for this. One of the reasons is economic growth is expected to recover in the second half of the year. The markets are looking forward, they don't look backwards. So the markets are trying to anticipate positive developments in the world around us. At the same time, all the central banks have made absolutely clear that there's enough monetary stimulus in the global economy and support. Here in the US, we have seen that Congress has passed significant stimuli to support small businesses and individuals. I think it is highly likely that we will see over the next few weeks an additional package of fiscal stimulus from the Federal Reserve. Before I close, let's have a quick look at our commodities screens. Starting with agriculture, we see that corn is trading at about $324 per bushel. The same thing with wheat, slightly lower than the last few days, especially last week. The reason for that is that China is beginning to continue its policy of reduced imports from the US of farm products. Live cattle is firmly stuck under $100. Copper, on the other hand, is moving. Remember, copper is an indication of growth in global manufacturing. Look where it is, 247. It's moving quite nicely. It seems that we're beginning to see slow recovery in manufacturing taking hold. Gold, 1737. Not much change really between Friday's close and today, and the reason is that investors are either concerned about inflation and inflationary pressures lurking in the background, or they still think that the danger in financial markets has not subsided. Either way, what we see is that the energy sector has moved steadily. West Texas Intermediate is moving around $35 a barrel. Brent is just under $40. And overall, we see that the commodities markets are off of their lows, similar to all other markets, which begs the question, are we at a turning point, or are we at a point where the policy will be supportive of the continued economic recovery? It seems that the markets are betting on the second. The fear has been replaced by Tina. There's no alternative except the markets. People are investing. We also saw that a few of the investors invested with the stimulus money. You may consider whether this is wise or not. But on the whole, the backdrop of real economic development at the moment seems positive. Back to you, Corey.
Thank you, George, for that. It's just been remarkable these last weeks, especially as we've been tracking all this stuff, how quickly things have changed. Some remarkable updates from around the world. You just mentioned we're looking forward to some news about what's happening in the U.S. with our next bills that are coming out. Some interesting things as far as, like, for example, like a payroll bonus for people who choose to get a job. That sounds eerily similar to Spain, where like a living wage is being rolled out and whatnot. It's just remarkable how the world governments are collaborating and coming together, especially when it's a lot of fear was that we're going to take our foot off the gas, right?
It's clear, even Goldman Sachs, Corey, changed its outlook for the US economy. Whereas before they were expecting that the S&P would slump down to 2,400 levels. At the moment, in fact, yesterday, the strategy team announced that they expect that the lowest point that the S&P 500 is likely to fall if we have a kind of retrenchment is likely to be 2,750. The liquidity is massive liquidity, 2.3 trillion in Europe, more than 5 trillion here in the US, and continue to grow. These are big changes, and let's hope that we as individuals remain focused and hopefully not complacent, because this pandemic has another level to run, I think.
Absolutely, and we'll see how that we'll definitely be seeing how those waves come, where they come, and how large they are. Interesting how real incomes for individuals is on the rise due to stimulus monies. Interesting how entrepreneurs are saving their cash. Interesting to track these behaviors as the globe tries to just hold on through these next weeks and months. So thank you, George, again for that update. It was definitely a big weekend across the globe with some unrest and so on. But we don't have to touch on that so much. I'm really excited to have Salvatore here from Pisa Lucca. Thank you so much for joining us. And would like to first hear a little bit about your personal background and what brought you to Startup Grind in the first place.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Grand Rapids Startup Grind. I'm Salvatore Rosania from Tuscany in Italy. I'm a CFO and business tech advisor, above all IoT project innovation. I'm a director of the Startup Grind in Pisa Lucca in Tuscany, and 6 months ago I founded with some others Italian director and HQ in San Francisco, Startup Grind Italy, in order to have an Italian communication, in order to synergize every chapter in Italy. So in my job, I deal with financial management of innovation projects, both European projects named Horizon, Life, etc., and national and local, so regional financial project. In this way, it's possible to develop innovation with the public financial support. Unfortunately, in Italy, the investment of Italian government is very low for company, for university, etc. But we can believe in Italian talent in order to scale up of startup and innovation in every company. I want to remember Galileo Galilei, Leonardo da Vinci, are important scientists, historical scientists in Italy and in Tuscany, in my area, where there is a lot of research center, 3 important universities in Europe, Università di Pisa, Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna, e Scuola Normale di Pisa. And above all, there is a lot of important companies, the paper mills, the tannery companies that produce bags, jackets, shoes, and etc. Now, for this period, the pandemic period, our area is reacting very well, but in this period, reacting above all, changing the business model, a famous pivot of the business model, in order to put attention in innovative solution to solve the problem of a pandemic problem, no? So, yeah. For example, telemedicine or IoT project in order to maintain a social distance. For example, a company, partner of mine, Sensory D, produce a bracelet that using the Bluetooth technology permit to have a social distance for person in a room or in a company or in a restaurant on the beach, the famous 1 meter, no, social distance. So I think that all of us have to be optimistic for future. Important now is being healthy, safety, and after the economy will have recovery. As George told, there is a do recovery.
Yeah, we can hope for that. Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought up the deep history your region has with innovation and science, and especially with the ties to those universities. The Financial Times mentioned that Tuscany is in the top 10 European cities and regions of the future, and not just your region, but like 4 other regions in Italy are listed as being some of the driving regions in innovation in Europe. How much of that has to do with um, uh, like coordination with other European countries, or how much of that is really just an Italian mindset?
Yeah, the Italy is an important nation for innovation in automotive. The famous name is Ferrari. No? So the innovation of this company led the innovation of Italy. But I can tell you that the core, the treasure of Italy is talent. Talent in a university, in company, in startup, and unfortunately, the VC, the fund investment, can't understand this fact, because in Italy there isn't a lot of money to help a startup. Even if 2 weeks ago, Italian government put a lot of money to scale up fund investment for VC in order to help startup in Italy. The amount is 200 millions for investment funds, Italian investment funds, and other 200 millions in order to bring national guarantee in order to take loans at very low interest rate for startup and innovative companies in Italy. Because all of us know that the real problem in this period is the financial problem. So is the weakness of financial asset in a company, you know, in cash flow. The problem is the cash flow. So it's very low. So in order to save the startup, in order to have a startup, national government is putting attention to financial situation, so putting finance money to startup, from banking to startup, from investment fund to startup.
That's just amazing to hear that, especially after being one of the first and hardest hit regions, that that there is that level of optimism and foresight to make that, to really invest in the people that are going to be the ones to get the innovations to emerge, and create that financial and sustainable like reemergence. So I'm really, that's just remarkable to hear about. I love that. And then, but I also want to hear a little bit about the makeup of your entrepreneurial community. So is it, is it a large, do you have a healthy amount of investors? Is it more founders? Is it a lot of students? Like,
yeah, allora, in my area, Pisa Lucca and Tuscany, there is some investment fund in Lucca, named A11, another little fund in Pisa. Then there is in Livorno, there is a equity crowdfunding platform in order to put money from people, normal people, to start up. There is a particular law in Italy in order to let this equity crowdfunding. In future, in Italy, there will be fintech, so Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, but the technology based on Bitcoin. I think that there is an increase of capital using fintech in a very short time. Now, in my area and in Italy, I think that is a very important the concept of open innovation. And so the possibility of some companies, some entrepreneurs with a huge amount of money is putting in a startup in order to scale up our business, our technology, because every company are focused on core business and not focused and see the future of innovation. So with by merging, acquisition of the startup, is it possible to scale up of our business and increase in revenues, reducing cost, because innovation bring surely a lot of increase of productivity and synergy in cost.
great. So, George, I'm curious. We've heard about the incredible government support so far. We've talked a little bit about coordination through Europe, and then we've heard that Salvatore started this Startup Grind chapter specifically, or even within Italy, to make those international connections. Do you have any further questions for Salvatore that we haven't talked about yet?
A couple of things and a couple of observations. Salvatore, I started working in Italy in the early 90s, and I had kept in touch with economic developments in Italy. But I've also read over the years about the history of Agnelli, the history of Olivetti, the history of Enzo Ferrari, to mention some of the leading industrial figures of Europe, not only of Italy. One of the key characteristics that cut across the board is that these individuals never relied on government contracts, at least at the beginning. They were innovators in terms of people, in terms of products, and in terms of processes. And if you allow me for a moment to mention, Corey, can I please share the screen for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, you see Raphael, right?
Yeah.
Do you all see Raphael?
Yeah, Raphael.
Okay, good. Raphael was a genius because one of the things that he did was, and allow me to read from this piece from this week's Economist, Raphael's artistic alchemy mingled the emotion in Leonardo's exchanged glances, the athleticism of Michelangelo's muscular nudes, and the softness of Perugino's Madonnas to create an oeuvre that until late in the 19th century was widely screened as greater than that of his high Renaissance contemporaries. It was only with the advent of first Impressionism and subsequently the 20th century avant-garde that Raphael's mastery of representational technique began to be appreciated a tad less. What I wanted to mention here, in other words, is essentially the fact that this innovation is very deeply ingrained in the Italian business community. And we've seen time and again that this innovation traveled the world, created a lot of partnerships, and Sergio Marchionne, the late Sergio Marchionne, managed to bring together two giants with long histories, Chrysler and Fiat. The significant challenge that I've seen over the years has been administrative restrictions, legislation, and of course, bureaucracy. The startups, as you remember from your experience in Silicon Valley, benefit from a benign, a positive backdrop of government policies. Beyond the lip service of putting $200 million of, let's say, for startups, which for Italy is nothing, or $200 million for guaranteed for loans, which again, for Italy is very little. Do you see the younger generation staying as innovators in Italy, or do we see them more going to Vancouver and to San Francisco? Or for this matter, in Berlin and Munich?
The aspiration of young people in Italy is going to San Francisco, is going to Berlin, is going to London, not remaining in Italy. The reason is bureaucracy, as you say, is the problem of looking for money from investment fund, and above all is the mindset. The problem in Italy is the mindset. The mindset in Italy is a political mindset, not entrepreneur mindset. Sergio Marchionne went away from Italy and lived in Canada and Switzerland, not in Italy. But I decided not to go away from Italy, but to fight in Italy the bureaucracy. It's a very difficult challenge. It's a very difficult challenge. It's not easy.
Bravo, bravo, Salvatore, bravo.
Thanks, George. I want you, George, and Corey in Pisa Lucca. In order, I invite you to have lunch or dinner with a big stick and a good wine.
Grazie, grazie per l'invitazione. Remember also, Salvatore, as we're closing slowly our discussions here, to me what was interesting is that there is a deep, very deep interest of Italian entrepreneurs, especially the older families, in innovation. And the proximity to Switzerland has always been an avenue for them, either to raise capital or through IPOs, through listings and so on and so forth, or to access the international community. Beyond the angel investors and the old family money, what are the banks involved at all? Do you see other sources of capital coming through? Do you see American private equity, German private equity, or for this matter, British private equity coming to Italy and help you with your work?
Yeah. Now in Italy, the most important investment fund are United Venture with Massimiliano Magrini, is a friend of mine, that invested in a startup of some friends of mine that based in San Francisco, till 1 year ago now, Cloud for We, startup Cloud for We, now is in New York, based in New York. The other important investor in Italy in startup is a family officer. No? So they are the family, no? As you say. I think that if you have some American investment fund or Israel investment fund or UK or German, etc., and you know them and you want to present me, I can bring you in excellence of Italy, no? In Pisa, in Milan, in the south of Italy, in Naples, there is an important center in San Giovanni a Teduccio, Naples, where Apple created an academy, Apple Academy named. There is a Cisco Academy in Naples. Now Amazon Academy from this year. So Italy is interesting for the talent. If I have a lot of money and I want to invest in a startup, I personally want to see the team, want to see the person, the ethics, etc. So a lot of startup in Italy is composed by a lot of ethic and talent. But the problem is that when startups go to looking for money, the politics coming into, and so the positive aspect of that money, no, can bring, it's nothing.
Because as you said before, the mindset is political, not entrepreneurial.
Yeah. Yep. In Italy now, it needs an American mindset, because now in this at this moment, post-pandemic, no, of virus of COVID-19, it's the moment for international investment funding to invest in Italy in order to make money and to help every startup in Italy. So if you have some international investment funding, please contact me and I help you to match with.
Absolutely. I think this is something. This is something that George and I have been speaking about a great deal about.
That you make money.
Yep. And exactly. And that's exactly one of the main reasons why it's really important for us to talk across, the ocean and across borders, and, bring the best of what we have of our mindset to you, and then your ideas to us. And I think, you'll be one of the first people we call, Salvatore. I think so. We have just a few minutes left, and I have two specific things that I would love to hear from you about. I was looking at your last event and your chapter, your last event at your Startup Grind chapter, where the speaker was Mr. Vitellio. Is that right?
Excuse me, Corey.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Your last event for yours.
My last event about the pandemic situation.
Yeah.
I interviewed 10 days ago a boy, an engineer that was involved in virus. COVID-19. It's very near to death, and he spoke about my rebirth after COVID, and he spoke about his rebirth after COVID-19. Michele Vitiello is a particular friend of mine because in the past in my life, I was a team manager of national soccer of Sosia. No, the person are similar, famous people, no? The Tom Cruise, no? The people similar to Tom Cruise, right. Sosia, no? In Italy, Sosia. And so after 15 years, I spoke about Michele, his rebirth, no? After COVID. Yeah, I was shocked, very shocked.
Well, I think it was really interesting how the description of your event here started with that quote about the crisis can be a real blessing for every person and every nation because it is precisely the crisis that brings progress. And then you had also spoken about your optimism,
yeah,
for the next months and years. And maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that, the reason why you're so optimistic.
Yeah. The optimistic is the very mindset to go on in life, in business, because after a problem there is an opportunity, always. It's the very important. This mindset is mine. I think that where there is a problem, there is a solution, there is opportunity. In fact, the market is, and so the success of a market, of business, is solving a problem.
You're right, and you will hear similar comments about mindset, about opportunities, about the inefficiencies, especially at the times of a crisis where you have supply chain, you have processes disrupted and so on. We hear that from our friends in Santiago de Chile, we heard that from our friends in Pakistan. Yes, it's a wonderful point to make, and the ability of entrepreneurs to go beyond this, see the opportunity and grab it.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're just at the last few minutes here. We always ask our guests, because you are the leader of your community, in these last few weeks or few months, what is the most common or the best piece of advice you find yourself giving your followers when they come to you and asking questions?
I think that first of all, followers have to follow Startup Grind Grand Rapids and the Startup Grind Pisa Lucca. For George, Corey Hart, in order to have advice for, I don't know, no? But the advice of George about the financial market is particular. I think that put this format in Startup Grand Italy, surely. So next event, I think that Corey and George will be my speakers.
Anything you need. Yes, that's one thing.
I think, Salvatore, you're mentioning an important point. Corey started by saying we do what we do here in Startup Grind because we like sharing knowledge. This is about sharing. If we can be of any help, just call us, let us know. We know how to coach, how to assist, how to give advice, how to organize, how to assess. And remember also that at different stages of its development, a company needs different skills. The startup is a different animal from a product company with an alpha product. or going through beta phasing, or even going through clinical trials, as you know for your experience, right?
Yeah. I think that a community as a startup grind is very important in order to do networking, in order to help others, in order to have indirect success. Because if you help universe helps you. And this spiritual point of view is not simple, no? It's very important. I think that my advice is coming into startup grind in order to meet a lot of interesting professional people in order to share knowledge, as George says, and above all, in order to sharing problems, because together the problem become more little, and above all, is possible solve this problem with innovation, or also by seeing in another way the problem.
I really appreciate that. The call for community is really powerful. So with that, we can end this. Yeah.
One final point, excuse me for a second. Salvatore, what you should also remember here, in West Michigan, we have a number of colleges. They're not very well known to the international, so to speak, academic environment. However, there's a lot of innovation here. And the innovation comes from a long history of entrepreneurs, very similar to that in Italy, actually. Where Corey and I are, originally we had Dutch immigrants that came in the mid of the 19th century. And this is why the town is called Holland, Michigan, where I am, for instance. This innovation covers all kinds of sectors. And at the universities here, you can find low-key, but very interesting hubs of knowledge. Again, it's not like San Francisco. It is not like other major, so to speak, Silicon Valley-like areas. However, we do have innovation here as well. And if we can be of help, as I mentioned before, we will try to do our best. I mean, Corey is the local ambassador, so he'll take care of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Great Lakes region is becoming more and more known, especially as this the pandemic flattens everything. So we can be anywhere and do anything. We don't necessarily have to be there in person anymore. So I think we finally figured that out. So Salvatore, thank you so much. Really grateful. A lot of gratitude. George and I look forward to having a big meal with a big glass of wine in the central square there in Pizza. And that'll be really great. So
Stick, the great stick.
Yep, exactly. So thank you again very much. And for those who are catching this recording, you can join us live if you want to talk to these chapter directors, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Otherwise, catch the recordings, as always, at startupgrind.com.